Hello and welcome to the Meet the Parents podcast.
Welcome to episode 29 of the Meet the Parents podcast, bringing you your weekly half hour of parenting chat from some of the UK's top parent bloggers. I'm Tim from Slouching Towards Thatcham, and this evening I'm going to be talking to Amie from Finding Our Feet, and returning to make a second guest appearance, Emma from Island Living 365. Good evening, ladies.
Hello. Hi.
So, on this week's podcast, we're going to take a slightly more serious turn than usual. We're going to discuss the role that parents and bloggers can take in raising awareness of campaigns and causes that are important to us. And then after that, I'll report back from my trip this week to the Inventors Workshop, an important showcase and networking event for budding toy and game entrepreneurs. So we're going to kick off by talking with Amie about the Bloggers for Refugees campaign. But before we do that, it's been a while since we last caught up. So what have you been up to over the summer, Amie?
It's been quite a busy one, actually. My first summer in quite a few years working, which was a bit of a shock to the system as I saw people on Instagram and things having a lovely time in the sun, and there was me in an office. But I did manage to get to Provence for a long weekend, and my dad got remarried in Rome, so we were there for about 10 days, which was lovely.
Let's talk about Bloggers for Refugees. So over the past year or so, we've become increasingly accustomed to seeing harrowing news stories and images about refugees flooding into the EU from countries such as Syria. But Amie, why don't you start by laying out some of the facts and figures about the refugee crisis?
I'm actually quite new to this debate. I am and I'm not, in that I was the same as so many people that I had kind of become desensitized to it, if I'm honest. And then with everything that went on with Brexit, for me, and I know quite a few other people, that sort of made us sit up, take notice and kind of go, it's kind of rejuvenated the conversation, which I think is a really good thing. And it's certainly, now I've started looking into it more, I feel very, very ashamed that I hadn't taken more notice properly before. So that's kind of where Bloggers for Refugees has come from. At the moment, there's an estimated 65.3 million refugees in the world, and over 50% of them are estimated to be under 18, i.e. children, which is just a vast amount of people. 4 million alone are from Syria, which is obviously the one that gets a lot of airtime. 11,000 children are estimated to have died in the conflict in Syria alone. I mean, I'm getting chills right now thinking just how many children haven't had a future because of this. And that's just disgusting for me. My mum actually spent a weekend in the Calais camp this summer and volunteered her time. And her description of what's called the Calais jungle was pretty graphic. The desperation these people are experiencing was just so overwhelming. There was a report earlier this year that came out from UNICEF that's interviewed children aged 11 to 17. And basically their lives are full of rape, abuse, neglect, prostitution, forced criminal activity, which could be anything from trafficking goods for the black market to drugs to trafficking humans, anything. Countless amounts of young girls and young boys even saying that they're exchanging sex for free passage to anywhere they can get. It's just horrifying.
And often these are sides of the crisis that often go largely unreported and by the media and unobserved by the general public.
It is, and I think it's hard. Like, there was a fabulous Save the Children ad last year, which a lot of bloggers in particular and a lot of parents are probably aware of, which was the It Could Have Been Me campaign. And it was the second day of the little girl in London who, it starts off, it's her birthday, and then by the end of the ad, and you've seen a second a day of that year, she's the equivalent of a war-torn child in Syria. And you see how her entire life changes from being in a lovely middle-class home with a loving family to completely on her own, utterly dishevelled. And the whole idea was to try and make Brits realise that just because it's not happening here doesn't mean it's not happening. And it was a fabulous advertising campaign. Part of the problem at the moment, people are are all too keen to get involved with that Instagram campaign and post a picture of their child in black and white with a sign that says it could have been me. But how many of those people actually then texted the £5 donation? And how many of them then encouraged somebody else to donate? And how many of them actually just uploaded an Instagram photo to get their 2 seconds of fame and however many likes they could get?
That's really sad, though, and heartbreaking, isn't it? That sort of
completely,
our society. That it's more about sort of getting the likes maybe than actually forgetting what the real issue is. And
completely. When you look at the stats of worldwide asylum seekers, refugees, migrants, is that out of that 65 million refugees worldwide, Britain is only housing 0.18% of the total number of refugees in the world today. And that is minuscule. Theresa May is attending Barack Obama's summit on the refugee crisis and things. I mean, we are a part of the conversation in a positive way, but Britain is actually behind. We had a pledge to allow and help a certain amount of refugees and asylum seekers by 2020. And at the moment, we are not on target to meet that. And we're already housing less than most other Western countries in the world, and we can't even keep our pledge. That's pretty poor.
Why is that? Why are we not meeting the... Do you know why?
I don't know, in truth, and it's something that I should look into for a post, and I will do. I should have it to hand, and I apologise that I don't, but there's all kinds of potential reasons, not least that we've become quite wrapped up in our own drama in the last year. You know, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've had austerity measures that are nothing in comparison to what some other people are having to deal with. Look at Italy and Greece. They've accepted far more refugees than the UK has, and yet they're literally potentially, well, look at Greece. It was bankrupt for a matter of however long.
Greece is a country that has, let me think, it's something like 25% unemployment, and that compares with the UK, where the unemployment rate is more like 5%. So, as you say, I mean, countries like Greece and Italy have economic and social problems that go far beyond anything that the UK has. This close-mindedness, almost this kind of island mentality, I guess, that sometimes we have in the UK, can be quite depressing.
Yeah, it really is.
Do you think that's encouraged by the media, though, the reporting of it?
I think there is a little bit that, as you say, the media do fan the flames and they create greater division than already exists. But it's encouraged, I think, a lot of feelings and opinions that were already there, but were perhaps a little bit more dormant until this whole debate arose. So I'm not sure it's necessarily created a whole load of bad feeling, but I think it's encouraged it. So, Amy, let's talk a bit more about the Bloggers for Refugees initiative. So, where did the idea for this come from, and how have you become involved in it?
Apparently, it actually started in Germany, but I'll be honest, I didn't know that existed until you brought it up the other day. My version of Bloggers for Refugees came about after my mum came back from the camps, and she started talking to me about everything she'd seen, the experiences. And my mum's a teacher, so she was teaching English to a couple of guys in the camps from Eritrea. And they were educated guys. They'd been at university. They had plans to become a lawyer and the various jobs. And she just said now they would be happy washing dishes if they could just get out of the camp. And it kind of, as I described a couple of the situations earlier as well, and I just felt like I can't not do anything. And you kind of end up in a weird position as a blogger. Whether you want it or not, you do have a certain influence, even no matter how small a group of people might read your blog. They listen to what you have to say, and they may not always agree with it. I'm not going to be arrogant and pretend that I have some sort of power over my readers, but they might be, even if you could change the opinions of a couple of people, if every blogger wrote something and could change the opinion of even just 2 people, think of how many people we would all be touching. So that's kind of where it came from. So I set up I basically sent out a blast on Twitter and a couple of Facebook blogger networks I'm a part of and said, is anyone interested? And about 20 people got in touch and said, yeah, definitely, 100%. One lady from Kent was already looking for a charity to get involved with, and she was just like, thank you for kind of pulling people together. And we made contact with a charity called CalAid, which is aid for Calais specifically, but they do work with other camps as well. And they've put us in touch with a bunch of teachers that spent their whole summer in the Greek camps. And so we're actually interviewing them, and those posts will be going live by the end of September. And that's to try and expose the conditions and the types of people that are there, and just to start to bring it to life a bit more. And now we have up to about, I think there's 43 bloggers in the Facebook group at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely growing.
What other campaigns and activities are you getting involved in?
So initially, we're kind of taking a phased approach. And so we initially want to be writing posts that start to try and change perceptions of refugees, as I said, and kind of bringing it to life and making people sit up and take notice that maybe had become a bit dormant in the conversation. And then eventually we would like to do some fundraising once we've kind of established the fact that we're here and we're interested in the cause. And there is a handful of us who have expressed interest in maybe going to the camps ourselves. And doing coverage of the camps is a really, really difficult thing to do, because you have to get permission of the people that you feature. Obviously, this is their lives. You can't just go in with a camera and a video team and be like, right, we're doing a video to show people what it's really like. We would like to do more from that perspective, but obviously it's a really fine line between invading these people's privacy and helping to really show what life is like for these people and how much they've lost. But yeah, the next goal is to start fundraising. And at the moment, we're supporting a not-for-profit publisher who's called Clever Fox. It was set up by Julia G. Fox, and she's actually a Russian refugee from 25 years ago. She was a child refugee, and she's written books about that experience for two reasons. One is to help children within the UK understand, and to give parents and teachers a way to sort of have that conversation with children in a way they'll understand. And also she's shipping those books for free to camps in Greece and France, and I think is it Lebanon as well, perhaps, to help with the children's education and to help with their emotional education and understanding and process of that as well. So if they're reading about their experience in a book, it will help them kind of come to terms with it in any way they can. And I just think that's fabulous. And all proceeds of these books go to help the refugee crisis. There is no profit at all going to Clever Fox. So yeah, we think that's a brilliant cause, and we'll be raising awareness of those books as a kind of first step to fundraising in October. And then there's also a Christmas campaign to look out for as well with CalAid, which is not so much fundraising, but trying to, basically there's going to be a wish list on amazon.co.uk. Basically, when you're doing your Christmas shop, we're asking you to go to the Amazon wish list for CalAid, and it's everything from £1 to hundreds of pounds per item. So there is something for literally every budget, and it's all essentials, and it's just about giving families things they genuinely need: tents, sleeping bags, gloves, a camp cooker so they can actually make themselves something warm to eat this winter, or even just boil some water to make some tea. There's socks, there's scarves, hats, all kinds of stuff, and they are all genuinely essential items. And the request is just, when you're doing your Christmas shopping for your family, could you maybe give something to these families who have absolutely nothing? So they're the kind of three big things we're doing before the end of this year. And then watch this space really for 2017.
No, there's some fantastic ideas there, and I think, as you said a bit earlier, it's so easy for us to become desensitized, or to just sit on the sidelines and wait for someone else to do something about it. And just what you've talked through, there were some great examples there, I think, of some of the many different ways that people can get involved. So where can people go to find out more?
Of course. Well, if you're a blogger, please search Facebook for the Facebook group, which is Bloggers for Refugees. It is a closed group, but that's mainly just so that we don't get people spamming us. Anyone who wants to get involved is welcome. So please do just request to join, and everything you need is in there. If you're looking for a way to more get involved with the crisis itself, donating, CalAid, which is CALAID, would be a great first stop. They have a map on their website of the UK with every donation drop-off point available, and in some cases they list the types of things they can take. So if they can take food, if they can take things like sleeping bags and bigger items as well. As I mentioned, the CalAid Christmas wish list, Clever Fox, Amazon, You can buy the books on Amazon as well. CalAid also have a cash donation page. It's a bit like a Just Giving page, but it's not Just Giving. So if you did just want to donate cash, which is something Brits really struggle with, actually, they would much rather give their secondhand baby clothes or whatever it might be, which is also hugely, hugely important. But cash, as cold and hard as it may be and feel to give, is actually hugely important as well, because food has a sell-by date. And one of the things my mum was doing when she was there this summer was sorting through food donations, which are at an all-time low. And she said that they were literally trying to sort them by sell-by date to make sure nothing went to waste, because, of course, although, if they're starving and it's a week out of date, a can of soup isn't going to go off that much if it's not been opened. But at the same time, as a charity, you cannot be seen to be giving these people who are in need anything that you yourself wouldn't want to eat. So it then ends up in the bin. That's what they have to do. So sometimes cold hard cash is the best way to go, because they can make sure they're buying food when it's needed, as opposed to having to store it and then it goes off date. I could talk about this for hours.
There's some really important points there, and actually the point you raised about not providing out-of-date food, it is important to remember that charities do have a duty of care to the people they're trying to help, and it's a little bit like the Hippocratic Oath for doctors, first do no harm. So Amie, thank you very much for talking us through Bloggers for Refugees.
No, thank you very much for giving me the time, Tim.
No, not at all. It's brilliant to see bloggers using their reach and influence to spur a wider community into action, and to genuinely try to make a difference to those who need help and support. I'll add the links that Amie mentioned into the show notes, and thanks very much again. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of its flagship hospital drama, the BBC is proud to announce the launch of a new children's spin-off, CBeebies Casualty. Guest stars in the opening episodes include an egg who sustained severe skull fractures after falling from a great height, and a boy and girl who tumbled down a hill, with the boy sustaining head injuries unsuccessfully treated with vinegar and brown paper. Also, resources are stretched to the limit when an army unit of 10,000 men from York arrive at the hospital, suffering from extreme exhaustion and dehydration after being marched repeatedly up and down a hill. CBeebies Casualty, a series tailor-made for a dangerous world of nursery rhymes. Continuing on the campaigning theme, I'm delighted to have Emma from the award-winning blog Island Living 365 back on the podcast to talk about a new campaign that she's just set up. Now, you made a guest appearance a couple of months ago, shortly after scooping the Fresh Voice Award at the Brit Mums Brilliance in Blogging Awards, and also a couple of appearances on BBC Radio Jersey. So what have you been up to since then, other than polishing your trophy on a half-hourly basis?
Oh, I wish. Nothing much, actually. I was hoping that I'd maybe have a book deal. No, I didn't really. Just carrying on writing, really, carrying on my blog. Nothing's really changed. I did actually, after I won the award, I suddenly felt a bit of pressure, like I needed to write really good posts. But then I sort of stopped. Yeah, I just got on with it, really, and told myself stop being silly and just carry on as I was. So yeah, nothing's changed. It's just the same. So
let's talk about the big C. So in the UK alone, there are 350,000 new cases of cancer that are diagnosed every year. So that is, on average, 1 every 90 seconds. And every year, cancer claims around 160,000 lives, and that's just in the UK. So, in the half hour or so that it will take you to listen to this podcast episode, 9 people will lose their lives to cancer. Cancer in its various guises is something that inevitably touches all of our lives, or someone close to us. And you're no exception, Emma. So tell us a little bit about how cancer has impacted your life.
I very recently lost a very close friend to cancer. Sorry. So before we knew that Sarah had been diagnosed with cancer, we read. I remember reading the stat that 1 in 4 people die from cancer, and we've got a very close group of friends. And I remember thinking, gosh, if that's true, then potentially one of us will be diagnosed with cancer. And then a couple of months later, Sarah sadly was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was only 35 years old. She was a wife and a mother to 2 young children. And yeah, she was a really extraordinary person, actually. I know everybody probably says that about people they've lost, but it really was true of Sarah. She was very determined in her life. She had a plan, and she was very annoyed. Actually, I say pissed off that this wasn't part of her plan. And she tackled it in typical spirit. This wasn't part of it, but you can get lost, cancer, because I'm not going to let you win. And she was determined to be around for her 2 young children. But sadly, she had a particularly aggressive form of cancer, and 15 months later, she died from it. Before we knew how bad it was, we decided we wanted to take her on a girly weekend away, and we booked it and everything. And it was in August that we were due to go away. And when it was clear that she wasn't going to make it, she still, being Sarah, demanded that, if she wasn't around, that we still go on the weekend for her, and that we were not to cancel it, and that we were to raise a glass of Prosecco to her and to, go and celebrate her life, which we kept that promise. We did that. And that kind of, I just think, just shows what an extraordinary person she was, really. She always retained her humour throughout her battle. And I remember in many of our chats, we discussed it, and I asked if there was cancer in the family. And her reply was no, but it has to start somewhere, doesn't it? And, until I lost Sarah to cancer, I think I'd always thought that I knew the stats, but I always thought naively that it was something that happened to other people. I didn't expect to see my healthy friend die from it. And, there's always so much in the media about it. It's linked to lifestyle, but she did absolutely everything right. When we were at uni, she was a sensible one. She went home early. She was in the hockey team, the first hockey team. She was active. So I think it just shows that it's just made me realise, losing Sarah has made me realise how cruel cancer is and how it can affect anyone. There's no guarantee that someone won't get cancer. And it has been estimated that in 2015, 9 million people lost their lives to cancer.
Yeah, and some of those numbers really are quite shocking. But as you say, very often we rationalise these things by thinking that they are things that happen to other people and they won't happen to us or our family or our friends. And so often the truth is anything but that. And I think it's really obvious to anyone who listens to your words and your voice how deeply this has affected you, as it affects anyone whose life has been touched by cancer. And it's such a it touches not just the person who is affected, but their family, their friends, everyone that has come into contact with them in their life. Yeah, so obviously you're trying to do something positive to address this. So you've teamed up with Sarah from the blog Mumzilla to create what I guess is your very own version of the BBC. So that's to say, bloggers beating cancer.
Yes. Yeah, I think I felt like I had to do something, because Sarah was always very much a person who was like, if you want to go and get something, you have to go and get it, Emma, and you have to do something about it. She didn't believe in sitting on your bum. She was always one for going out and doing stuff. So I thought that, for her, that I had to try and find something positive in this, really. So we decided to set up Bloggers Beating Cancer. So really it came about because the day after Sarah sort of died, I didn't really know what to do with myself. So I sort of ended up writing, just chucking a load of words onto the computer screen as a way of sort of trying to make sense of what happened. And I sort of wrote a blog post about grief called There Are No Words. And it really was just me grieving. I just hit publish and I thought, well, actually, I don't know if I should be publishing it, because grief is something that's supposed to be private, or that's what you sort of led to believe anyway. But then I was sort of astounded by the response that I had, and the comments and the emails that I received. And it sort of was then that I realised just how many people had been affected by cancer. And one of those people was Sarah from Mumzilla. And we got chatting about how it'd be great to use our blogging platforms for good, so to try and do something good with them. So we came up with the hashtag Bloggers Beating Cancer as a way of raising awareness and getting people talking. And we're also asking if people would like to write a post about their experience of cancer, or if they'd like to join us on the Friday the 30th of September at 10:30 a.m. and take part in a virtual coffee morning. And it's just a way of sort of everyone coming together, donating some money on the Just Giving page. And it's also a way for people to reconnect, perhaps to Skype your friend that you haven't seen recently, who now lives on the other side of the world. It's just a nice thing to do, I think, really, to bring everyone together. And already a lot of people have got on board. We're getting a lot of support. We've had people writing posts, which is really lovely to see. Brit Mums have published a piece today on it. Mumsnet are going to share it on their newsletter. And Sarah's written a piece for the Huffington Post, and they've published that too, which is really nice. People are starting to share the hashtag too, and it's good to see the blogging community come together and hopefully raising some money for a good cause. Because if we raise enough money, which means that we can just save one person from cancer, or then I think that's just something fantastic that we've achieved.
And it's I think it's a brilliant idea. Anything that does drive awareness, and particularly reconnecting with people around us in our lives who often we're too busy to spend time with, because that time that we have is precious, and you never know when it might be taken away. Is this the first time that you've been involved in kind of driving a campaign like this?
In driving, yes. I don't really have a clue what I'm doing. I've in the past helped and participated, but I've never really sort of spearheaded, I guess the word is. I don't know. So actually, if you two have any advice on what I should be doing, that would be gratefully appreciated.
It'd be the blind leading the blind, my friend. I'm quite new to this as well.
But any tips from the experiences that you've had so far, Amy?
The Facebook group has been a massive help. So in terms of actually coordinating the bloggers, they're all sharing. So within that Facebook group, we have an editable file where you can just link dump. It is on a file rather than the wall, so that anyone can kind of find posts that each others have written, either to reference back to them, or if they're looking for inspiration, and then also from my perspective, because we're working with various different charities, I can post the press releases in that file drop as well. And then also CalAid are dropping royalty-free photos that we can use in there. And obviously, as I mentioned, photos for us are quite a difficult one, so that's really helpful. It just really works in terms of galvanising the bloggers together, and giving you a central place to be able to contact them, shout about any opportunities, any upcoming events, stuff like that. So yeah, that I would recommend, actually. So
Emma, through the BBC, what charities are you supporting?
So we are supporting, we've decided to go for sort of a care and cure approach. So we're supporting Macmillan, because it also ties in the Macmillan Coffee Morning, and then we are also supporting Bart's charity, and the money from Bart's charity goes towards the development of, I think I'm saying this right, immunotherapy treatments, which if Sarah had survived, we believe it would have been her only hope. So it's like cutting edge stuff, really, to try and tackle cancer.
Okay. And have you set any kind of a target that you're aiming to achieve?
Well, we would love to raise £1,000, and really, I think if you think how many bloggers are out there, and if every person just donated £5, then we could achieve that. So yeah, that's our target at the moment.
So in terms of campaign and the activity kicking off, you mentioned the virtual coffee morning on September the 30th, but what else is happening?
So we're already asking people to write their posts, to share their experiences, to get it out there, to spread the word. We're asking people to use the hashtag bloggers beating cancer. The donation page is open already, and we have had some donations already too, which is fantastic. But like you said, the main event is on Friday the 30th of September at 10:30 a.m. Obviously, a lot of people work, but what I'm saying to those people, that it'd still be lovely if you could get involved, if maybe you organised your own coffee morning at work and took some cakes in and collected donations, then that would be fantastic as well. Excellent.
So finally, where can people go online to find out more about Bloggers Beating Cancer?
So on my blog, Island Living 365, at the end of each post at the moment, I'm linking about Bloggers Beating Cancer, and I've also written a full post on it called Bloggers Beating Cancer.
Emma, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight, and best of luck with Bloggers Beating Cancer.
No, thank you for letting me talk about it.
So there you have it, two great examples of bloggers who are using their influence as a platform for taking action for causes that they believe in. So, for many people, charity and campaigning often involves little more than putting spare change in a collecting tin or texting a small donation whenever children in need or comic relief or something similar is on the telly. Now, there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, and the accumulation of small acts can and does make a big difference. But there's always more that all of us can do. If, as bloggers, the likes of Amie and Emma can lend their not inconsiderable voices to encourage others to rally to a cause, that can only be a good thing, I think. So, individually, our voices may only be a whisper, but together they can create a roar. I'm going to finish up just by talking about my day at the Inventors Workshop for toy inventors this week. Now, I spend a lot of time in the parent blogging community, and inevitably discussion turns to how we can make money from our blogs. Some people like me aren't overly interested in that. For others, it offers a viable income that can accommodate a flexible working schedule around family needs. But of course, there are other ways parents can put their skills and experience to good use to earn a living beyond the traditional 9 to 5. Now, if you've listened to any of the previous 3 podcasts, you'll know that I've been doing a series of interviews with parents who found success as toy entrepreneurs. So first I spoke to Gillian Logan, founder of the step-by-step drawing kit brand Skinny Sketcher. Then I spoke to Frances Kane, founder of the award-winning doll and accessories range A Girl for All Time. And finally I chatted with Rena Nathanson, the driving force behind the multi-million selling word game Bananagrams. It wasn't really something I'd given much thought to before, but when you think about it, who better to spot a gap in the market for a children's toy or game than a parent? Now, of course, having an idea is one thing. If you've ever watched Dragon's Den, you'll know that actually bringing a product to market and turning it into a success is quite another thing. There are all sorts of hurdles for a budding entrepreneur to get over. Finding the right contacts and convincing them to give you 15 minutes of their time to pitch to them. Learning about manufacturing, licensing agreements, finance, protecting intellectual property, marketing. It's not an easy process, and you don't get that many opportunities. And that's the point of the Inventors Workshop. It's an annual event that brings together toy and game inventors, 70 of them this year, both major and independent toy companies, and the retailers who will put finished product on their shelves. So Hasbro were there, Argos too, and you don't get many bigger hitters than that really. So it's an opportunity for people to learn some of those additional business skills that you need, and to actually get face time with the toy companies to pitch your idea and get some feedback. Anyhow, I went along this week curious to see what it was all about, and I was pleased to discover the event's more than just for show. So I got to listen to Kieran Larkin, a Belfast product designer who pitched at last year's workshop and is now working with Hasbro on a number of different projects. Skinny Sketcher came to market as a result of Gillian Logan attending the event 2 years ago, and it was lovely to meet both Gillian and Bananagram's Rena Nathanson face to face, having only ever spoken to them on Skype before while doing our interviews. And I also got to talk to people from some of the toy companies about how the whole process of finding and working with external inventors works. Now, the day itself was split into 2 halves, a series of conference sessions in the morning covering everything from intellectual property and the development of artificial intelligence for the next generation of toys, to inspiring stories of how other toy inventors have made it, one of whom looked suspiciously like Radio 1 DJ and Extra Factor presenter Matt Edmondson, largely on account of the fact that it was Matt Edmondson. Now, the afternoon was then devoted to inventors pitching their ideas and how-to clinics to help people learn more about some of the other business-related elements of the toy trade. It was great to hear the success stories, and also that there's no one definitive way to do it. Some entrepreneurs have done it in association with the big boys, others have done it with smaller independent companies, while others still have gone their own way. Now, there's pros and cons to following any of these routes, but the point is that it can, and it has been done, so it is possible. Better still, increasingly the big toy companies are investing more and more in external innovation, and the fact that they take events such as the Inventors Workshop seriously is a good sign of that. In fact, from the interviews and chats that I've had over the past couple of weeks, I'd say now is a better time than ever for new inventors to launch their own ideas. Toy companies are more receptive than ever to external ideas. Alternative financing options such as crowdfunding are now easily accessible. 3D printing makes it easier and more affordable than ever to create prototypes. And social media gives small brands the opportunity to market to people and build up their own communities. So if you're one of those people like Gillian Logan or Francis Kane or Rena Nathanson, and you have an idea for a toy or a game but don't necessarily have all the answers yet, you can rest assured that it's not an impossible task. But as with so many things in life, if you don't show up, you'll never know what might be possible, and something like the Inventors Workshop might be just the kickstart you need. So if you think you have what it takes to create the next Bananagrams, go to their website at inventorsworkshopevent.com to find out more. Book yourself a ticket for next year, and maybe listen to my interviews in episodes 26, 27 and 28 of this podcast for inspiration and ideas. You never know. And that's it for another episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. I'm away next week, so we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. But in the meantime, here's where you can find the three of us online. So, Amy.
I am findingourfeet.co.uk and Twitter and Instagram at findingourfeet.
And Emma.
I'm islandliving365.com and Twitter is islandliving365 and the same for Instagram.
And I'm at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com, and you can find me online on Twitter and other social media channels as at ThatchamDad. So you can download this podcast on iTunes and Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. Do please also give us a follow on Twitter at Parents Podcast and Facebook at facebook.com/meetstheparentspodcast. So I will attach links to all the sites mentioned by both Amy and Emma on the blog. And thanks very much for listening. Good night.
Night.
Night.